Good morning from Universal Studios Japan. Today, I'm going to walk around the park and find things that are the same but different from Universal Studios Florida, because this park and that one have a lot of similarities and some areas that are exactly the same, just laid down a little different. So let's go through the park and take a look. For starters, here's the entrance. The layout is kind of the same, even though all the buildings are unique. This is all Hollywood, and that way will take you to Hollywood as well. And if you continue straight, it'll take you to the New York area. And here's what I mean, because as soon as you cross the street right here, this is all the same layout, and for the most part, the same buildings as Universal Orlando. And over where Bourne Stuntacular would be, you have the Hollywood Dream and Hollywood Dream backdrop coaster. Now, all of the buildings have different interiors, but the facade is for the most part the same or similar. Now, where you have the horror makeup show, you also have the rock and roll show here, and the Hollywood Dream just kind of scattered all throughout, going in the top part of these buildings, which is really cool. I cannot see any standout differences looking at Mel, with the exception of the streamliner that's attached to the side with all this seating. In the Battery Park section overlooking the lake, normally there'd be seating here, they have games set up. Panning around, this is where Transformers would be. Instead you have a Sing on Tour show. And then back in the corner where you would have Jimmy Fallon, you have Terminator 2. This is where your Universal Monsters Cafe would be. Now we're looking back at the main entrance. Here's where that big open area with the stage would be at. And this would be Jimmy Fallon, but it's Terminator 2 here. Scanning through this area, it doesn't look very different at all. Except you got this park area here with the stage, and it's all flat for seating instead of raised, which is quite clever. And then of course, Spider-Man instead of the Mummy. Pretty funny, at one point this was, or maybe still is, a Universal souvenir store. So this is closed though. Walking a little closer to the fake facade, it all looks so similar. Funny thing though, is this is closed off. Normally in Florida that's open and you can look down and it just kind of ends after a few feet. Now a lot of these similar but different details I'm pointing out are ones that really stand out. I'm sure there's tons of subtle things that I'm not seeing. I'm just pointing out what really catches the eye. Such as the Halloween Horror Nights tribute store being the Spider-Man store. Panning through this area, not too much standing out. The alleyway is a little different because you can't actually walk through it. I do find it funny that the Palace Arcade is not actually an arcade, considering how popular they are in Japan. Checking this back section in New York, and the Gotham Ice Company is still restrooms. Continuing along, everything seems to be fine until you have this odd break here for this Minion section and the Ghirardelli building over there. It all got kind of shifted over to the left, but then the layout becomes the same once we get over there. And as soon as we cross this area right here, we're back into the same design layout as in Orlando. As we enter San Francisco, Rich's Burger Co. is now the Happiness Cafe. They even have that little bar area there, and Lombard's. This side looks, for the most part, the same as well, with the exception of this Dragon's Pearl restaurant, which clearly stands out. And instead of Fast and Furious, you have seating area. Here at the end of the San Francisco area is where it stops being the same, because you turn around and now you enter the Jurassic Park area. Other than the long walk to get back there, Hogsmeade is essentially the same as the one in Orlando, with the exception of Hagrid's. Jaws here is the same one that used to be in Orlando, with the exception of it being in Japanese. It's been so long since they changed Jaws in Orlando that I don't recall if any of these buildings are reused in the Amity area. And lastly, there is no Waterworld in Orlando, but this one is just like the show in Hollywood, but being in Japanese. Alright, that is going to do it here from Universal Japan, walking around, taking a look at what's the same but different from Universal Orlando. Kind of weird to see the same buildings reused and laid out just a little bit different. And a lot of the rides are exactly the same, but Japanese versions. Overall, fantastic park, and it might be my favorite Universal. But that is going to do it. Thank you all for watching. The caravan is moving on.